format is working towards a book, and I have really enjoyed, from Cairo Divided, which was my first publication in 2011, the self-published newspaper. You know, that was really where I sort of moved from being a photojournalist, working on big projects and big ideas, and being disgruntled with the way that they were being condensed into magazines. And that's the impetus behind creating this. And the process of creating this really allowed me to think about my sequencing, you know, my how readers...
This is your image on the...
No, the whole publication is mine. So I made this newspaper out of some money I won from an award. And this got me thinking about the bilingual side of it. So you read Arabic from the back and English from the left to the right and right to the left. And we printed 5,000 and it was distributed for free and da-da-da-da-da. So this really got me thinking into how to engage with other audiences that I feel would be interesting to, outside of the Guardian Weekend magazine or Le Monde or whatever, which are great vehicles, don't get me wrong, but this is how I feel the project should be best viewed, with the full text. So, you know, going into the book format is something that I have in the back of my mind, but I'm also very cautious, I want to be aware of how else other people can engage with this. You know, there's 500 copies of this. For a South African, for the average South African, this is prohibitively expensive, right? Like, this is 400 rand. Most people probably earn 800 to 1,000 rand a month in South Africa. So this is out of there. So that's why doing things like within the grant processing, we want to create a website, and so everybody can access that website. We did outdoor poster exhibitions. I haven't done anything really within a formal gallery setting with the complete series of work. You know, this festival, I was so pleased that they wanted to put the work outside, because that's actually where the work has mainly been seen. So, you know, I understand that this is probably one of the best spaces for the completeness of the work in some ways. And I admire the objects themselves, and I put a lot of time. I mean, pretty much all my publications, I'm doing a lot of the designing, I'm thinking about the materials, I'm thinking about the paper. I really like that side of things. It's very tactile and it's very rewarding, but so few people will have this in their pocket. So, yeah, it's...
We've already mentioned it, but I wanted to get back to talk about the sort of power balance, and because there are certain photographers who they really make their best work in the geographic space, in the area where they come from. But you have you are a visitor in their world, and this is where you make your best work, as it seems. We spoke about you, that you had done some work in London, but you weren't so pleased with it, and it is a difference. Well, some photographers really make their own work about their world, and others make it when they can come as visitors and watch and tell another story and visit the part of their world directly.
Yeah, I guess, so when I moved to Cairo, it was actually, a lot of it was a sort of a want from myself for an experience, a new experience, outside of photography, right? So there was this sort of like, my life in London, I had another career before becoming a photojournalist, and so there was a sense of like, if I can just get up and move away from this space, then I can really reinvent myself and really change and focus on the things that I would like to focus on. So there was a huge amount of space that was created through that process. I left my relationship, I left my flat, I left my family. You know, I sacrificed a lot of things, but I kind of wanted...
When was this? How long was this ago?
That was, so I was 27, so 2007. So it's like
10 years ago now?
Yeah, 9 years ago, yeah. So that's when I started photography.
So it seems very radical. Was it thought out, or was it like...
No, I mean, it was. I showed my portfolio to a few agencies. They said, maybe we'll give you some work if you go to Cairo. I said I was thinking of going to Cairo. They said, maybe we'll give you some, I don't know. Don't rely on us to pay your rent. And I just moved. I'd never visited the country before. I'd worked in the Middle East a lot, and I was interested in learning Arabic. And so, yeah, big kind of bold jump into the unknown. and that process politicized me hugely, and that kind of engagement that I had with Egypt, with the Middle East, with the stories I was involved in, with the community, the sort of journalism community, the academic community, was really invigorating and a huge kind of sea change in the way I lived my life and what I focused on. So I think for more than the idea that I don't find England interesting, there's when I remove myself from my everyday, you know, London, you just get into like a routine somehow of like go to the studio and emails, and you know, I've just been in Vietnam and all I'm doing is thinking about my work and my project, and so there's an isolation that happens within that, which I think is really very productive.
But now you perhaps, because now you're married and you're expecting your first child, so now perhaps you will have to stay in London for a while and make it work, tell stories.
Yep.
Yeah. Is that what you plan to do? Or?
I haven't got that. I'm still working on the project from the last 2 years. So there'll be a book and exhibitions coming out, and at the same time there'll be this new child.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll see what happens when I kind of get off my dad duties next May, June, and see what happens next. But yeah, I guess I get obsessed with an idea or a topic. That's the way I end up working on this stuff. It's really like, if nothing's banging about, I won't just go and shoot something for the hell of it. I'm not that type of photographer.
No.
I'm not like walking around with a camera always shooting. I rarely take photos outside of these projects.
Okay.
So I'm not that, everything's a photograph and my life is one big kind of photography movie sort of thing. I don't have that reaction to photography. And maybe from that sort of the quote you had earlier about the it's immoral to go and take more photos. I sort of feel that a little bit. You know, it's like, what am I doing? Why would I be here? I'm not just going to fly to Haiti because there's been an earthquake. So yeah.
And I wanted also, we have to see what the time is, so we don't. Good. I wanted to return or talk a little bit about your development, because I know you work with music before, or making visuals.
Yeah, so I made visuals in theatres and clubs and for bands and.
Yes, and that's what you did until you were like 26, 27.
Yeah, exactly.
But were there, because often you can like trace really good photographs. It's because I worked a lot with young photographers, and also when I worked in a newspaper, you could immediately see if there was this kind of sensitivity, and then it could be something that they had done before. You could move this sensitivity to one area or another. You could, well, paint or music or some sort of artistic area. And I think that this is quite clear in your images, that you have this sense of rather classical beauty, as we spoke about, wanting to portray. And I wanted to speak to you about that. How was it? Were you aware of that being a child? How did you see? What was your seeing like? Did you experience art, or did you experience music, or did you read? Or
yeah, the reason I ended up going into the moving image side of things is whilst I was studying photography at university, music was my thing growing up, for sure. That was it. Everything was about music.
What kind of music? Mention some of the music.
All sorts. I've just gone back to a few kind of, things like Net Atomic Dustbin and Carter and Orbital, and sort of this early kind of 90s, sort of electronica, pop will eat itself. This music that's sort of, I think the musicians at the time thought they were being fairly political, but it's obviously just kind of very hedonistic kind of stuff. But yeah, huge festivals, 24-hour raves, this very immersive spaces. And so when I was at university, I got to know the DJs and the promoters there, and I started to project my photographs that I was shooting whilst I was, for my course, in their clubs.
Okay.
And then when I actually, for my third year, rather than creating a photography project, I created music videos. And then I just carried on. I went to London. I just started working with some, the ICD Institute of Contemporary Arts. They have club nights there, 333, the Barbican. So I started to work with poets, work with bands. So yeah, for me, that kind of engagement and that kind of collaboration and that idea of immersive spaces, working with other artists was really exciting and sort of very rewarding. But I think after a while it became a little bit like, I felt like it was wallpaper. It was the band that was actually what people were going to see, and the visuals were trying to add something. The theatre productions, the poets that I was working with, even though they felt like I was very integral and without me it wouldn't be the same experience, I felt less that I had my own voice. And some of it also felt a little indulgent and not really connected to anything. It was very much like sort of elemental type visuals. They weren't really, I wasn't like interviewing people and things like that. So the documentary work that I had done on my degree, I carried on looking at that type of work in my own time and going to those exhibitions. And then I decided, I'm going to quit this, go back to do photojournalism as an MA, and then that's when I moved to Cairo.
So perhaps there's another leap coming soon, because this was 10 years ago, so there is a total change in direction. You start with something completely different or so.
My life feels like, next week I'm not sure entirely what I'm doing. Okay. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously the project I've been working on for the last couple of years, again, that is a bit of a different direction, so we'll see.
It's exciting. We'll have to ask, because we are interested in that. What do you think of Landskrona? You've been there for like only a day or so, but we still want to know.
I mean, it's always so lovely to just come to a place that's so relaxed. I sort of felt like maybe there had been an emergency when I first arrived, because I saw like 2 cars. I thought everybody had just run away somewhere. But I used the 50-metre swimming pool, outdoor swimming pool yesterday, and anywhere with a big Olympic outdoor pool is top town. So.
That's good. And you saw also your exhibition. Are you pleased with how it's been shown?
I think it's really interesting. Actually, when I went over yesterday, there was a group of people sat in between it. It was a nice sunny day, so kind of using that outdoor space and relaxing and being able to, maybe, I don't know if they were interested in the photographs, but that idea that you could sit back and maybe look at the work for a bit longer, I thought was really nice, and the contrast between the urban, imagery with the park, I thought was a really lovely, setting.
We'll round off, and I will leave a few minutes for questions from the audience, because perhaps there are.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we'll do that. And in that case, I think I need a microphone. Or there. Let's see.
Yeah, they're behind the computer.
Oh.
Can I take which one?
Whatever you like.
Whatever I like. Okay. So, are there any questions? Do we have any questions for Jason from any of you? Perhaps it's too early for questions. I don't know. No. Vad ska vi säga? Är det på nu?
Ja.
Vill du say? Yes.
Is it on?
Yes.
I was a little bit interested about the waiting times of these people. Did you wait there with them, or did they tell you that they were going to?
Yeah.
Because in the early 90s, I was working just for a brief time in Zimbabwe, and before leaving for there, I was on this course that the Swedish government offered about cultural differences, so we would know how to behave properly when we came to a new country. And one of the things that they told us was that waiting times in different cultures are very, very different. And how long does it take before somebody gets irritated? And I think Sweden was 2 minutes. Like if somebody's 2 minutes late, then you start getting agitated and looking at your watch and wondering why they don't respect you. And in Africa, in Zimbabwe anyway, it was sort of 2 to 4 hours or something, because the bus systems were very unreliable. But I think that these people who are waiting like 7.5 hours, are they waiting the whole time expecting that a bus will come along or something else will come along?
No, sorry, because a lot of these people aren't just waiting for transport. So the 7.5 hours, he's just waiting for money. So he's at traffic lights just waiting for money, like begging.
Oh, begging, okay.
So he's like, people were waiting to cross the road. And that was the reason why I decided to pull all that information out and just leave it, with these time periods. So no, there's all sorts of people waiting for jobs, waiting to just get their car, waiting to cross the road. I really decided to sort of open it up, because actually being too focused into that transport and that idea of the legacy of apartheid through the zoning and how people had to now move around, I felt like would just make people think about movement and, isn't that sad that he has to wait 2 hours to get a bus? It's like, isn't it sad that anybody has to wait? Or is it sad that I got frustrated that I only had to wait 2 minutes to be spoken to when I phoned my bank or something, So it was just this idea of being able to hopefully allow viewers outside of South Africa to relate a bit more to that.
But I mean, in some sense, then in the very larger sense of waiting, you could say that we're all always waiting. I mean, if it's your lifestyle to beg on the street and you do it standing up instead of finding a park and sitting down or something, it's sort of, that's every day. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, if I have to wait for a bus, I will start reading the news. I will start, writing an email, writing a text message. So I think this idea of efficiency in the West has got to a point where it's kind of crazy, right? We don't actually just stop and stand and just... And I think that's what's quite interesting about it. A lot of these people, they're not doing anything but waiting. That was another part of the sort of the visual rule that I set myself. If they were engaged in their phones, then that didn't really... Because I think you just lost that engagement. And you're not waiting at that point, you're looking at your phone. You're outside of that way. You're in a moment of waiting but doing something else. So I think that kind of, that raw act of just waiting for me was what spoke.
Någon hinner vi en till kanske klockan, det kanske var. So, I think, yes, please.
You said that about the waiting book that you were much involved in aesthetics and the paper quality and stuff like that. How did you publish it? What publisher did you use, or is it your own self-published or what?
It was published through a publishing house from South Africa that I worked with for 2 other publications. Fourth Wall Books, they're called. They're sort of one of the only kind of artsy publishers that deal with sort of both academic and arts approaches within South Africa. But it was a partnership between PhotoWorks in the UK. And working, having those sort of relationships, because I sort of took the idea to Fourth Wall, and then together with the publishers we then created the application for the grants to then get this work, and so I think that sort of helped the process of having those, knowing where the output would go, let's say. That always helps with grants.
Were you satisfied with how the book came out?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's when I went to Italy to print it, the printers were broken, and then I was travelling for work when it went back online. So there's a couple of images that aren't exactly, but you sometimes just have to kind of let those things go, and but no.
Yes. Thank you. So, yes, I think we'll round off and finish this conversation. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Jason, for coming here to speak with us. And we have a gift for you from
very nice.
Landskrona.
It's kind.
Yes, if I could detangle it.
Thank
Thank you.
you very much.
Okay.